Around 1200 BC, 8 of the world's most advanced civilizations collapsed. Within a single generation, thriving empires watched their cities burn and populations scatter. This wasn't a standard military defeat. It was a simultaneous disappearance. Archaeologists have spent a century trying to understand how an entire globalized world could effectively erase itself from history, leaving behind a dark age that lasted 300 years. To understand what was lost, we have to look at how much they built. The Late Bronze Age featured a sophisticated network stretching from Italy to Afghanistan. It was anchored by major powers, the Egyptians, the Mycenaean Greeks, and the Hittites. These empires were physically linked by trade. Bronze required mixing 10 parts copper with 1 part tin. With copper from Cyprus and tin from Afghanistan, they built a massive, interdependent economy. This integration funded the massive temples of Egypt and the fortified palaces of Greece. It supported a merchant class that traded ivory and gold, and a bureaucracy that used writing to track every shipment. They had achieved a level of architectural mastery that defined the landscape for centuries. But that same interconnectedness created a hidden vulnerability. When a civilization relies on distant kingdoms for its food, its metal, and its defense, it becomes fragile. A failure in one region can ripple across the entire system. The crash was sudden. Across the region, palatial centers were torched and abandoned. The destruction was so complete that entire writing systems, like the Mycenaean Greek script Linear B, were lost as the scribes who used them disappeared. At Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, the destruction was absolute. Despite massive stone walls, the city was burned. Evidence shows the royal grain silos were emptied, and the ruling family abandoned the city in a panic shortly before it fell. Further south, the port city of Ugarit provides a first-hand account of the disaster as it reached the coast. Buried in the ruins, archaeologists found a clay tablet from Ugarit's last king, baked in the city's destroying fires. His desperate plea explained his troops were gone and sea raiders ravaged his lands. His final words, "Our city is sacked. May you know it." These cities were separated by hundreds of miles and protected by elite armies. Their near-simultaneous burning suggests this wasn't a series of small wars, but a region-wide systemic collapse. To explain this, historians look at several overlapping forces that struck the region at the start of the 12th century BC. First, there were the Sea Peoples. These were a mysterious coalition of naval raiders and refugees who began appearing along the coastlines, destroying port cities and disrupting the vital tin trade. Egyptian records confirm the scale of this threat. Massive wall reliefs at Medinet Habu depict Pharaoh Ramesses III fighting off waves of these invaders, showing that the most powerful military in the world was forced into a desperate struggle for survival. But the invaders weren't the only pressure. Geological core samples from the region show that a 150-year megadrought took hold during this exact period, leading to failed harvests and widespread famine. Seismic data adds a third factor, an earthquake storm. Research suggests a cluster of massive earthquakes rattled the Mediterranean, leveling fortified cities and leaving them defenseless. These environmental disasters likely triggered internal revolts. Facing starvation and unable to rely on their kings for protection, the peasant classes may have staged violent uprisings against their own rulers. Individually, these empires could survive a drought or an earthquake, but the historical record shows that these forces were not isolated. They collided, creating a situation that no single civilization had the capacity to manage. The ancient world wasn't destroyed by a single event. It was dismantled by a perfect storm of disasters striking in rapid succession. When these timelines overlap, the logic of the collapse becomes clear. An empire might survive a famine, but it cannot survive famine, seismic destruction, and a naval invasion happening all at once. This is how the system failed. When one kingdom fell to the drought, its neighbors lost a vital trading partner. The supply chain for tin and copper shattered. One by one, the hubs of the ancient world blinked out as the network that sustained them disintegrated. The Late Bronze Age didn't fall because its people were weak. It fell because its systems were too rigid. They had built a complex, hyper-optimized world that was unable to absorb multiple shocks. Today, we no longer depend on bronze, but we are even more reliant on global networks. We move microchips, food, and energy through a system that links every continent on a scale the Hittites could never have imagined. If a modern storm of climate shifts, natural disasters, and global conflict were to hit us with the same intensity, we have to ask, is our own network resilient enough to withstand the pressure? After the collapse, it took centuries for literacy and trade to return to the Mediterranean. And the identity of the Sea Peoples, the group that delivered the final blow, remains a mystery. The ruins of the Bronze Age serve as a warning. They prove that no matter how wealthy or advanced a civilization becomes, complexity alone is never a guarantee of survival.